Hello, my name is Dan with FuturePerfectGaming, and this is the £100 Gaming PC Challenge. Roll the intro. This is the £100 Gaming PC Challenge. How much would you expect to pay for a custom gaming PC nowadays? £500, £800, £1,000? What if I told you you could build a fully fledged gaming PC for just a bit over £100? I present to you the Mini Beast. Let's talk about spec. We took our time searching for the best deals for the components we wanted, and I feel like we got some great bargains. We managed to get a CPU, motherboard and memory bundle, which comprised of a Q9300 Core 2 quad, which is 2.5 GHz, and 4 GB of DDR2 RAM, £35 with free shipping. The graphics card, I couldn't believe my luck with this one. We managed to find an AMD R9 280 3 GHz at DDR5 for £35 on eBay. Now, not everyone is going to be able to find this card at this price, but the bargains are there. This card was put on eBay as faulty. We tested it back in the office and it was working absolutely fine, so it could have been a problem from the person selling its end. So that was an absolute bargain. The hard drive was salvaged from an old PC we no longer needed. It's 500 GB SATA free, which is ample space for all of your games and operating system. This is powered by a 600 watt PSU, which is more than enough to power your system and the graphics card, which was £17 from eBay with free postage. This is all hosted inside a Blue Hero case by CIT, which cost just over £20 with free shipping from eBay. All in all, this PC came out at just over £108. Let's see how she runs with some benchmarking tests. We're going to be testing Grand Theft Auto 5, Rocket League, Skyrim, and last we're going to test Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Let's go!
First off, we have GTA5 running at 720p on its default graphics settings. Straight out the bat, you can see the frame rate is, well, 60 FPS. It's absolutely as smooth as butter. The textures and the graphical elements aren't set to high, they're sort of low to medium settings, but I thought that was best to keep it as default because the system's telling it what it needs to run the smoothest gameplay possible. And we're getting 60 FPS and even up to 70 FPS. It's absolutely fantastic. Gameplay is absolutely fine, no jaggies or sort of rogue elements. The driving's really smooth as well, up to 72 frames per second. And this is on 720p. Not bad at all. Particles look good. You know, I think it's not bad at all considering this is a £100 PC. Okay, so now we're running GTA5 at 1080p on the same graphics settings as 720p. And as you can see, we are still in the very high 50s most of the time, very high 50 frames per second. Gameplay is still very smooth. Say for argument's sake, it's pretty much 60 FPS, and the resolution is just that much higher. Still an absolute joy to play, you know, considering this is a £100 PC. I mean, it's just, you know, it's as smooth as a console experience, really. Shadows look really good, the rogue looks good, all the particle effects look great, the lighting looks great, you know, it's not even no problem. 60 FPS, you know, between 50 and 60 pretty consistently. Drops down to 40 or so at various points, but I don't think that's a huge problem. But overall, really happy with that. Okay, next up we have Rocket League running 720p on the system's default settings that it's chosen for itself. I didn't want to tinker with the settings too much because I just wanted to have the simplest experience possible if you're building this machine yourself. You know, if you stick to these specs, build the machine, you can get these sort of frame rates, and it's running at about 60 FPS plus, no problem. Absolutely fine. An absolute joy to play. Just like playing on a console. You know, it's sort of running at low to medium levels, but the game looks lovely anyway. Yeah, no problems. Solid 60 FPS. No issues whatsoever. Okay, and now we're running Rocket League on the same settings at 1080p. and the frames per second are still very, very good. You know, it's still looking about 60. It's going to drop a little bit when the action gets up, when there's a lot going on the screen. But for argument's sake, we can say this is still a pretty good experience running this game at 60 FPS. You know, you're absolutely fine. You know, you're not getting any less of an experience that a console player is going to get. Yeah, still really good. You know, this game is very well optimised. Give them credit. That's been pretty solid. I mean, you could argue that this game is more optimised to run at 1080, really, because it's handling the same sort of FPS. No problems whatsoever. Hats off to the developers. Next we have Skyrim running 720p on its default settings. The default settings Skyrim wanted to do was ultra high quality, and as you can see, we're still getting very good frame rates. You know, around 40 to 50 on average, but this is on the extreme quality, the highest quality setting it gives you. So you could easily turn that down a bit and get an even better experience. But I found with the highest settings, this was still absolutely playable and fine to get the quality of Skyrim. You know, for a machine that cost £100, this is looking pretty damn good. No problems at all. You could easily get 60, 70, maybe even 80 FPS by turning the graphics down, I'd say. But then anything over 60 is a bit of a waste, in my opinion. Unless you're trying to run 4K, which this system will not manage. Okay, so next up we have the same settings, ultra high quality, 1080p this time. And straight out of the bat, we're running actually even more FPS. So the game is optimised for 1080p, so it's putting more load on the graphics card as opposed to the CPU. So yeah, this game actually runs better in 1080p than it does in 720p on average. And this is ultra high quality. I mean, it's just unbelievable that this is a £100 PC. I know I keep saying it, but I keep having to pinch myself. So yeah, no problem at all. I mean, it's still running pretty good, 40 FPS plus on average. You know, even in the high sort of action moments where there's a lot going on the screen. Anything over 30 is perfectly playable. No problems at all. Very, very, very happy with that. Okay, so next up we have Counter-Strike Global Offensive running at 720p on its default settings, not touched anything other than the resolution. And this game does struggle a little bit. It might be trying to run the game on a higher setting than it really can handle. But I found at 720p it's playable, but you can see the choppiness at moments when there's a lot of action on the screen. It does drop to around 20 FPS at times, but most of the time it runs at about 40. But somehow it still feels like it's struggling a little bit. But yeah, you could easily run this game by turning all the settings right down. Yep, so 40 FPS there. There's not much going on, but it's just walking. But you can see it's kind of struggling to render the level in front of you. 50 FPS. See, it's getting a bit better. Maybe it needs time to warm up. Next up we have the same game, Counter-Strike Global Offensive. This time it's running at 1080p on the same settings as before. Yeah, I actually feel like, even though the FPS is slightly lower than last time, it's actually a bit more playable on 1080p. Probably because it's putting more load on the graphics card and taking less load off of the CPU. I do tend to find running these games at high resolution is actually more beneficial when you have a good graphics card. Which you wouldn't necessarily think that, but it does help. Still struggles a bit, but I mean 1080p, you can't really complain. Just drop the settings down and you are good to go. You know, you can see where it is slightly jagged and it's struggling to render in front of you. But like I say, anything over 30 is playable. I know people like Counter-Strike to play at the highest resolution possible, but you know, for £100 PC, what more can you ask for?
Our final thoughts on the Mini Beast were very, very positive. Even at 1080p, all of the games were perfectly playable on their default graphical settings, perfectly good frame rates. 720p was even better. So if you follow this guide and use similar components, you too can build yourself your very own £100 gaming PC. If you have enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and maybe leave a comment. Share it with your friends, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you can be alerted when our next videos are going live.